So with that said, let's talk about the news. Geno is back. The Jets, instead of signing Geno Smith, Darren Muji orchestrates a trade with the Raiders, who were going to release their quarterback, Geno Smith. So the Jets, the official details of the trade, they are sending a 2026 sixth-round pick in exchange for Geno and a 2026 seventh-round pick. Now, the Jets are taking on Geno's contract. Not so fast. New reporting out there, according to Adam Schefter, before the trade was agreed to, Geno Smith agreed to restructure his contract. The Raiders will still pay the bulk of it, and the Jets will take on Smith's contract at just over the veteran minimum. So the Raiders are paying Geno Smith to not play for them, and instead of just outright releasing him, Darren Muji and John Spytek, the Raiders general manager, they have a good relationship, and thus, rather than just release Geno, the Raiders are able to move up a full round in the draft, getting a 6 for a 7. So does that matter in the grand scheme of things? No. Ultimately, Geno Smith agreeing to that restructure means he's not going to cost the Jets any money, which was the expectation the whole time, that he wasn't going to cost them any money in terms of this deal. And look, here's the reality for Geno Smith. Last year with the Raiders was an unmitigated disaster, but it was not just him. That was a situation that was completely dysfunctional. All right, Pete Carroll was completely checked out. He didn't have it anymore. That was obvious. He hired Chip Kelly. They paid him $6 million a year. He was the highest paid coordinator in the sport, and they fired him in week 10. Other than Brock Bowers, the Raiders had no weapons. They had the worst offensive line in the league. So it's very easy to explain away part of the issues that Geno had. What you can't explain away, though, is the fact that over the last 2 years, Geno Smith has thrown 32 interceptions, including a league-high 17 last year. Can Geno Smith play better with the Jets than what he showed with the Raiders? Yeah, I think he can. I don't think that's crazy. Is Geno Smith taking the Jets anywhere? No. He's 35 years old. He turns 36 in September. This is a tough sell for any Jet fan to rally behind Geno Smith. Some Jet fans who only see the positives in things will find a way. I can't do it. I got to be honest. I can't. Geno Smith coming to the Jets and having like this, ironically, the Ryan Fitzpatrick season that could have been Geno's year if he didn't get punched out by his own teammate. Is IK Matapali coming back to the Jets too while we're on this? I just don't see Geno having enough in the tank to be able to do that. I don't. Now, would I love to be wrong? Absolutely. It'd be an amazing story if Geno, who got drafted by the Jets, comes back years later and he ends the playoff drought. Because the playoff drought, it didn't start technically with Geno, but that 2013 8-8 Rex season, that ended up being the beginning of the end, because then they ran it back with Rex. Geno goes 3-10 the following year. Then the 2015 incident in training camp happens, and that was really the end of Geno, and the Jets have never really recovered from the John Izek and Rex pairing, when either Rex and Tannenbaum should have stayed together or they both should have been fired and the Jets should have moved on. Look, I'm not going to try and put lipstick on a pig. Geno Smith is not very good. Can he maybe be better this year? Again, I think there's a path for him to be a little better. I don't think he's, completely forgotten how to play the position. He's better than Justin Fields, but he threw 17 interceptions last year. And all you need to know about Geno Smith, he went 10-7 with Seattle in 2024, Mike McDonald's first season there, and they still got rid of him and replaced him with Sam Darnold. So it's just tough to truly be excited about this from a Jet perspective. Now, the big key is going to be what happens now, right? Because Geno Smith's not going to be the only quarterback they add, especially given the fact the Jets aren't paying him any money. He cost the Jets absolutely no capital whatsoever, right? They traded the sixth and got back a seventh. They're paying him no money. So they have money to now spend on a different quarterback. Is that quarterback going to be Carson Wentz? Are they going to flip a draft pick to get Derek Carr and have a true quarterback battle between Geno and Carr? Could Kirk Cousins get in the mix? Doesn't sound like it, which is baffling to me, but that's a whole nother conversation we can have later on as we analyze this move. Could Jacoby Brissett be in play? Reports are they're going to keep him. Well, could the Jets flip a fourth compensatory pick, fourth rounder, and get Brissett and have a true quarterback battle? Is the plan, hey, we're going to take Ty Simpson at 16? I still don't think that's their plan at this point, but they're going to add someone to that room in the draft. Could be on day 2 with their 2 seconds. Maybe Ty makes it to 33. Maybe it's a different quarterback we're not talking about. But the bottom line is Geno's the first of what I believe will be at least 2 more meaningful additions. one in the veteran market and then one in the draft. But again, it's just tough to sit here and try and talk people into Geno Smith. I think if you're a Jet fan trying to do that, you're being dishonest with yourselves. If you want some positivity, I will, of course, find positivity because that's what I do. Geno Smith helped bring Sam Darnold to Seattle. Geno Smith helped tank the Raiders to Fernando Mendoza. And maybe a year from now, Geno Smith will help the New York Jets march for Arch. By the way, I've already sold 3 T-shirts since Geno Smith signed with the Jets, since the Jets traded for Geno Smith. JakeAsman.com if you want to get your shirt. But I don't know how any Jet fans going to be pumped about this. The options weren't great. It's just tough to sell yourself on Geno. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Geno's awesome and he proves us wrong. Here's me high-fiving Geno before a game in 2013. All right, like I used to like Geno. I supported him. I'm going to support him because he's the Jet quarterback. Maybe we'll recreate this photo at some point this year. I'm even wearing my old school Jet logo, which feels weird calling it old school, T-shirt here because I'm trying to find some ways to support this move. But I just don't think Geno Smith's very good. Again, I spoke with one of my good friends who's a diehard Raiders fan who said, look, Geno was bad, but it wasn't just him. It was dysfunctional, all this and that. And it's true, it was. But there's a couple of alarming statistics with Geno Smith. On plays when he was throwing to guys wide open, he had the highest interception rate in the league. So when guys actually were open and he was protected, he just wasn't accurate last year. And his numbers have dipped now 2 straight years, and he's getting older. Again, he'll be 36 when the season rolls around. It's just tough to sit here and truly buy Geno Smith as the guy. Now that you have Geno, though, what's the pivot? Can they acquire a quarterback with some upside? And look, it might be false hope, but wouldn't you feel a little better about the quarterback room if they acquired Will Levis or Tanner McKee or Spencer Rattler, right? Like if they signed Carson Wentz, what is that doing? Then you really have nothing if you're a Jet fan. If they acquire someone who's an unknown that's probably bad, but we don't know for sure, at least you have something. Like I'm trying to give us something because the reality is the only people who are going to be watching Jets football this year, once they get off to a bad start, if that happens, are going to be the diehards. And all the casual fans are going to be waiting for the draft in 2027. And that's a depressing way to have to be a fan of your team. Feeling like that you're just basically going through the motions for a year. And Glenn is not going to do that. Muji's not going to do that. He's not guaranteed to be here. I think he's safer than Aaron Glenn at this point. But, like, that's how it feels from a fan perspective. These guys are going to try and win games and save their job. But does anyone actually think Geno Smith is going to save people's jobs? Like, seriously, the Jets bring back Geno. The first interception he throws, you could already see all the jokes that are going to be made online. Back like he never left. Like, you already know what's coming. And, like, would it be awesome if Geno could have this, like, renaissance year? Again, ironically, we're looking for him to have the Ryan Fitzpatrick 2015 season. But, like, does anyone actually think that happens? Again, I want to be wrong and save the tape and show it to everyone around the Jets and let them make fun of me, all that. But it's just like, I got to be honest. I got to keep it real with the 900 people watching live and thousands after the fact. Like, does anyone actually think this is going to work? That's why I hope that they could at least bring in someone with maybe some semblance of an upside to be the backup. Even Derek Carr would have some semblance of an upside. He wasn't a bad quarterback a couple of years ago. Now, I have major concerns about his health and his shoulder and missing a year, but at least, like, get me someone else in the room that I can have something to point to if it doesn't work with Geno. Carson Wentz is not that guy. And it sounds like Wentz is going to be the guy they're targeting based on some of the reports that are now out there. Unreal. But this trade's official. Geno Smith was already in New Jersey today. He was at the Jet facility. He took a physical. We actually had a caller who spotted Geno Smith at a medical place that was adjacent to the Jet facility, apparently, on my first stream this morning. So, look, Geno's a Jet, and we got to root for him. But, again, the positive is Geno helped the Seahawks get Darnold. He helped the Raiders seemingly get Mendoza coming up next month. Maybe he helps the Jets get their long-term answer at the quarterback spot as well. But, again, 35, soon to be 36-year-old Geno Smith, who's thrown 32 interceptions the last 2 years. I can't sit here and be gung-ho about this. I now want to see what the pivot is for their back. But again, we knew the options weren't great. And the one positive of Geno, he's not costing you any money. I know they acquired him via trade, but based on the salary cap restructure that Geno agreed to, the Raiders are basically paying Geno Smith's contract. So the Jets take on Geno's deal at just over the minimum. And that's kind of where we're at. A little depressing if you're a Jet fan, but we kind of got rumblings that it was headed this way over the last few days. So ultimately, as we sit here right now, I kind of have a feel how the fan base is feeling, but we'll take plenty of your calls. I want to hear from you. Emergency live stream. The Jets and Geno Smith are having themselves a reunion. Geno back to the Jets. ESPN photoshopped him in the new uniform. I mean, I know there's a ton of Jet fans who still probably have their Geno jerseys from years ago. So there you go. Comments, questions, super chats. They cut the line. Let me share the raffle prize. We'll raffle this away at the end of the show. We're going to give away a signed Wayne Corbett jersey for any Jet fan who enters the raffle, and he has Maniac out there. Send in a gifted membership, and you'll qualify, or send in a super chat $10 or higher, and you will have a chance to get 2 raffle tickets with that. And when you enter our raffle at the end of this breaking news stream, you're also qualified for our weekly Friday raffle featuring a signed Joe Namath helmet, Joe Klecko signed helmet, and a Garrett Wilson signed helmet. And here's the thing with Garrett Wilson now I want to talk about in relation to Geno Smith. They better feed him. They better give him his targets. He better put up his numbers. The last thing the Jets need is this season goes so far off the rails. Garrett's finally like, I've had enough, and he requests a trade. And while I don't know if that means they definitely would move him, if that's the case, Garrett is all in. He's defending the Jets. Like, you want to win something with this guy while he's here. And while I don't think the Jets are going to be very good this year, like, you don't want to just be awful immediately. Like, again, can you be scrappy? Can you be competitive? The defense should be improved. The head coach has superpowers, and you added some talent to it. You're going to add Arvell Reese, I believe, at pick 2. You got 3 other picks in the top 44 after that. Like, this team is not completely bereft of talent. I have major questions about the head coach. How could you not? The offensive coordinator might be, past his prime, but Frank Reich's at least a pro. Can you design a competent offense? Like, we should have some games where the Jet quarterback passes above 100 yards. Like, again, I don't think Geno's very good, but like, can we at least be watchable? Like, again, I spend 4 hours a day talking about this team. You all diehards are tuned in right now. Can we get something? Even if it's like fake good. Like Salah's team in year 2 was 6-3 before they fell apart. 7-4 before they lost 6 straight. I don't know if Glenn's going to be able to see 3 games above 500. He's hitching his wagon to Geno. Again, what's the plan now? Is it Ty Simpson? Is it going to be like a veteran with some upside maybe? Is the QB2? There's got to be something. Pain, man. Pain. All right, we'll keep it rolling with our outstanding guest. This guy was originally going to come on today to break down some film on Jet free agent signings, and then Geno got signed. Joe Blewett joins us now. Joe, we'll save some of the film for another appearance when things die down. But now that you're on, give us the instant reaction to Eugene Smith coming back to the Jets.
It's better than Carson Wentz, I guess.
You might get both.
Yeah. I think that's probably what ends up happening is that he's the number 2, and you bring in a guy in the draft, probably 4th round or later. But I don't hate it. I guess I don't love it either. Like, realistically, with the quarterback options, I would have preferred Kirk Cousins. I would have preferred a Brissett. Probably would have even preferred a Carr. But I don't think those guys are like so substantially better than a Geno Smith where it matters all that much to me, And with Cousins, obviously, too, like, what is his contract? I saw some rumors that he was expecting around 20-25 million as well. So Geno Smith costing you $1 million, but it's like $1.2 million. So not taking up a lot of the cap. You don't really have any ties to him. Decent, right? Like, he's had some decent seasons recently. Obviously, leading the NFL last year in picks is not all that great.
32 the last 2 years is not great either.
Yeah, I think he threw for like almost or a little bit over 4,000 yards 2 years ago, right? So at least he's putting the ball up there. It's a guy that can at least get the ball to Garrett Wilson deep down the field, has some good arm talent, some good accuracy. It could definitely waver with Geno. I remember that a lot about him with the Jets. It's like some beautiful throws and 2 or 3 in a row, and then one he'll just completely whiff on a throw over the middle. So the accuracy is definitely inconsistent, but it's okay. I'm hoping that we get somebody in the draft, another free agent that can instill some type of hope for us for like a higher ceiling than Geno, because Carr, while he may be a little bit more risky, I think he has a higher ceiling than what a Geno Smith could provide you if Derek Carr is healthy. So I don't hate it. I don't love it. It kind of is what it is at this point with Geno. I'm not going to lose my mind.
Comments, questions, super chats, cut the line. Let's react to what the chat is saying. Joe Blewett hanging out with us, and we certainly got a lot to discuss. This one is from Jupiku says, doesn't it feel like we're following the Seahawks' exact path? Well, Geno went from Seattle, and they ended up with Darnold. Then he goes to the Raiders. They're going to end up with Mendoza. Can Geno help us land our future answer at the quarterback spot? Is that the path the Jets are on, Joe Blewett?
Yeah, right. I've seen that that he's led to quite a few successful quarterbacks. The place that he just previously left. So that's maybe that's what it is for the Jets. Whether that be a 2027 quarterback, one in this draft. We'll see what happens with Simpson. They gave themselves a ton of flexibility in this draft, so I feel like it's probably more likely that they draft Simpson at 16 than it was a few days ago because they added a ton on defense. Like even depth we're talking about. It's not even just starters that they're plugging up. They added a lot of depth too. So they have a lot of versatility, or they have a lot of flexibility to not have to add positions in the draft on defense. Obviously add we still have some holes on offense. I'd argue 2 on the offensive line and 1 at receiver 2, maybe even receiver 4 for this team because Mechie didn't come back. So I definitely just think they open themselves up, and maybe it's a quarterback like Simpson who will be your next guy to take over for Geno who makes a run.
Hit the like button if you guys are tuning in. Joe Blewett from JetX is my guest. We still got 900 people watching live. Shout out to the best listeners for being engaged with all the content, including those who have purchased some March for Art shirts since we've been on the air. I want to give a shout out to listener Anthony Lamella, who bought a shirt and is entered in the raffle for 5. Anyone who buys a March for Art shirt during this live show, we'll put you in our raffle for the 3 signed helmets on Friday. Garrett Wilson, Joe Klecko, Joe Namath, and end of the show, Wayne Corbett autographed jersey is the top prize. We got a super chat from our guy Taylor in Connecticut. Taylor D'Onofrio, O-line going from strength to need is a disaster for us, and Geno was almost as bad as Fields, man. Geno was not Fields level bad, but again, the O-line needs to be solidified before the draft. The plan can't be we're just going to go in and just draft the guard at 16. I don't care how good Vega from Penn State is. I don't know if you've done any film on him, Joe, but to me, they should sign a legit veteran in free agency that could be a guard/center type. So at least you're covered going into the draft, and you truly can let the board play out BPA, and then you address your needs, and your strategy based on not knowing you need to reach for a position. You could truly evaluate your options and not through a lens of, well, we better get this player because we don't have a starting left guard right now, starting right guard.
Yeah, I think if you go into the draft with the offensive line the way it is now, you're almost going to need to force the pick at 16 because they need 2 interior offensive lines. To me, I'm not signing up for Myers to be your starting center. I think he could be obviously in a pinch, and he's kind of what we expected him to be last year, right? Like he's a really low end starter or a very high end backup. So I would like to see him be that high end backup and grab 2 interior offensive linemen. They don't have to be studs. They don't have to be Linderbaum, $27 million a year or anything like that. But guys in the range from like $5 to $15 million type contracts. I want to see at least one of those to give yourself some more flexibility. And if an offensive lineman presents itself, 33 or 44 or whatever we are next, like 103, and you really like one of those guys, then you can bring them in to compete with a Myers. But right now, I think I'm 100% with you. You need at least one offensive lineman, starting level offensive lineman before you go into the draft, because if not, I do think you probably have to force it. And in terms of like going from a strength to a need is a disaster for us. Really, the only thing we lost is Simpson, right? Like AVT wasn't there for the entire year, and he just obviously got a big contract, which speaks to how good he is when he's healthy. I didn't expect him to get that much, but speaks to how good he is when he's healthy. But really, it's Simpson. Like that's the biggest loss right now, and he was below average last year. So I think a free agent signing for $8, $9, $10 million can replace him relatively well. And then again, we'll see what happens in the draft. So definitely need at least one more.
Benjig writes, and I get it, the Geno slight's well deserved, but there's no way we're picking first overall. We won 3 games with Fields. Don't see us duplicating that. Again, things happen, man. Last year, the Raiders were not supposed to be the worst team in the league. Like it just became a bleep show. What if Geno gets hurt and Carson Wentz is playing for you? Then you might be picking 1-1, right? Or Geno just might be shot. Again, he's going to be 36. He's thrown 32 picks the last 2 years. We could just say, oh, it was just all the Raiders' dysfunction. He wasn't that good as last year in Seattle. I think Geno Smith's better than what they've had, but the bar is pretty low. They could be awful if Glenn doesn't fix the defense. And I think talent-wise, the defense is much improved. But like Glenn can't say, well, it took me until my 4th year as a DC for my defense to be good in Detroit. It's got to be much better immediately for him to have a chance to save his job and for the Jets to win at least 6 or 7 games for him to be the head coach a year from now.
Yeah, I think you're like hoping for the 2015 Fitzpatrick year. I forget how many picks he threw in that year, but obviously 31 touchdowns. I don't think you're going to see that from Geno. He had 17 touchdowns, 17 picks last year, right? So hoping if you address some of the holes on offense, you add 2 interior offensive linemen, you get a receiver, maybe a receiver 4. And you really build out the offense. Could he give you, high 3s, low 4s in terms of the thousands of yards, 25 touchdowns and like 15 picks? Like, would you be okay with that if that's Geno's type of stat line? It's possible, in terms of the upgrade of rosters that you're going from the Raiders to the Jets. I'm not gassing up the Jets or anything like that, but I think we'd both argue that the Jets situation is better than the 2024 Raiders or the 2025 Raiders offense. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, but I'm of the mind that I'm okay with this if there's another body brought in that's at least capable, again, like a Carr. If it's just with the Wentz and then it's like a 5th round quarterback, not much to write home about there. But if it's a Ty Simpson, if it is a Derek Carr, something like that, at least give you some hope for a legit competition. But him just being the surefire starter for the entire 2026 Jets is obviously not overly inspiring.
Hit the like button if you're just tuning in. Joe Blewett is our guest. Let's see what we have here. Ralphie checks in the raffle for 2. And by the way, I checked for you. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 15 interceptions in 2015, 31 touchdowns, 3,905 yards. If you remember, though, of the 15 picks, he threw 3 or 4 of them in that Bills game in week 17. Yeah. I think it was 3, but I prefer not to think about that.
I think they were all in the 4th quarter, too, actually.
You're right. Yeah. Remember he threw 6 against the Chiefs the following year?
I do.
I threw a coffee table through a window in my college apartment watching that game.
Yeah, that was a bad one. The Arizona game was a really bad one. I think Geno actually checked in like the 3rd quarter, but they lost like 28-3 or something like that. And I was in the crowd for that one, which was awful. So yeah, not the best memories of Fitz in 2016, but yeah, scratch off like 5 or 6 of those touchdowns, 24 touchdowns, 25 touchdowns, high 3,000 yards. Like, I think he could be capable. There's also obviously a chance where he completely blows up and you have, only 3 or 4 wins. Like, that's definitely possible, which is why you want to see him paired with a guy who could take over. And then you worry a little bit about like the immaturity. Now, obviously he was a lot younger with the Jets, a decade ago. So you're hoping he matured a little bit, but I specifically remember him like running off the field last year at a certain point. I don't know if it was at the Raiders Stadium or not, but he's flipping dudes the bird. So I'm not sure how mature he is still, but yeah, as a Bridget, I'm not going to lose my mind again. Like how much better is Kirk Cousins really? How much better is Carr? Really. So I'm not going to lose it about it. Was hoping for a little bit more. It seems like the Cardinals are going to stick with Brissett. At least that's some of the rumors that are floating around. I'd much rather have him just because I think he's a better veteran leader, and he might. I think he's a little bit better.
That was my thing, Joe. Like, I'm with you. I wanted Geno and trade for Derek Carr and have a real competition. I wanted Geno and Jacoby Brissett. Like, I'm sorry, what has Geno Smith done? We just hand him the starting job, even if they brought in Will Levis, let Will Levis compete for the starting job. We all know if it's Wentz. Wentz is not winning the job over Geno. We know what Wentz is. With that, we say hello to our good friend Robby Sabo, who is the co-founder of JetX, JetsXFactor.com, and the host of the Underdog podcast with Jet Great Wayne Corbett. Robby, eventful day 1. Give us the breakdown. How you feeling? Your thoughts on some of the moves the Jets made. Defensive heavy day 1 for Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn.
Defensive heavy, and the intent is clear. It's strength, physicality, point of attack, run defense. That's what Glenn is going for. 100%. That is written all over their moves. Demario Davis, we've talked about it since the Sherwood re-signing last year. They needed a heavier guy who could fill, who could spill, who could take on blocks, a la Bart Scott and Rex's day, next to Sherwood. And Demario Davis does that. He's 37. Haven't watched his tape yet, so until I do that, won't feel comfortable. Same thing with Minkah, both of them. I like the moves, but I got to see more, make sure they didn't drop off. It's weird to me that Miami gave Minkah to the Jets. No? Is no one questioning that, by the way? A division rival, just a 7th rounder. Maybe it was the contract. I don't know, but
new regime as well. They seemingly don't care about any of that yet. They just got there.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong. I'm kind of side-eyeing that one. Demario, I love it. Physicality, point of attack, run defense, and leadership, as I heard you say yesterday a bunch of times. And that's what it is. It's no more powder puff football. And that is, I think that's the main takeaway for me.
I think they signed professionals, to your point. And certainly the void in leadership was obvious if you watched the team this past year. And I think that was clearly a real priority for the Jets. So let's just get everyone caught up on where things stand. And we will, of course, get to the unfortunate news that not that AVT is leaving. That felt obvious. That felt like where the wind was blowing. But he's leaving to go sign with the damn Patriots. But to recap, here are all the moves the Jets have made since the free agent window got underway yesterday. They traded for Micah Fitzpatrick, traded the 7th-round pick, which is a stroke of genius by the great Darren Muji, in my opinion. They got that 7th-round pick in the deal that acquired Jarvis Brownlee, where the Jets set the 6th-round pick. So they really flipped a 6th for Brownlee and now Minka. They ink him to a 3-year, $40 million contract. I have yet to see what the guarantees are for the deal, but I'm fully expecting it to be no longer than a true 2-year commitment. They also, yesterday, they signed Demario Davis to a 2-year, $22 million contract. $17 million or $15 million or so is a guaranteed. So it's basically a quasi 1-year deal. The other notable moves that the New York Jets made as they went defensive heavy, they signed a string of edge rushers. Joseph Osai, 3 years, $36 million, comes over from the Bengals. Jets also inking Kingsley, and I'm working on the phonetic pronunciation of his name, Robbie. Yeah. The Jets signed Kingsley Enagbare to a 1-year, $10 million contract. Some limitations in his game, but he did have 6.5 sacks as a situational rusher his last 2 years in Green Bay, 17 quarterback hits, high effort guy. He fits the role. He's a professional. That's the scouting report on Kingsley. And when we got off the air last night, you knew another move would happen. The Jets signed Dane Belton from the New York Giants. He's a safety, big special teams player. I'd imagine he and Malachi Moore will compete for the opposite starting safety job next to Minka, and the Jets could certainly draft a safety that's in the competition there as well. And plus, one other note, the Jets re-signed Mr. Preseason, Andrew Beck, the fullback, back on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. So those are all the moves to this point. We have some new reports on Geno Smith and the latest on the Jets' pursuit of a quarterback. But now let's talk about the Alijah Vera-Tucker news.
Yeah.
You hate to see this, Jet fans. AVT to the Patriots, 3-year deal, $42 million, worth up to $48 million. AVT, it felt like he was as good as gone. Brian Costello saying yesterday, AVT wanted a change of scenery. He wanted a fresh start. And when I heard that, I said, okay, but feels like the Giants are the team that's the front runner to sign him. That doesn't make much sense if you want a fresh start. You're still playing at MetLife, still playing in the same area. Well, it turns out it wasn't the Giants. It's the Pats who swoop in and sign Vera-Tucker. And let's be honest, the immediate reaction if you're a Jet fan is, well, here we go. Now I'm sure he'll never miss another game and be the Pro Bowl player we all know he's capable of being when he's healthy.
Yeah, at first, though, I was genuinely concerned about his well-being. I kept seeing Jet comments, he's dead to me. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, he'll turn out to be Hannah, the next great interior offensive lineman for the Pats. Watch. What was the guaranteed money again?
I'm going to look up the specifics in the guarantee.
It wasn't reported initially. Okay. Look, what can you do? It's in the Breece Hall discussion too. Is it truly a big deal about him tweeting? Yes and no. Like you're not going to go crazy and try to put out a fire in terms of it because you're just so used to it at this point, but it's the disgruntled nature that comes with time. And, the human psyche, subconscious, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it's tough to fend that off and guard against that. And it just happens. And let's be honest, if you were in AVT's situation too, you'd probably feel the same way. And that's not to say you don't love the Jets anymore. You got to be objective. So yeah, the Pats, hell of a decision there. And that'll be something if he doesn't get hurt. Yeah.
And look, I would root for AVT if he went to almost any other team, but I mean, this was the worst possible thing he could have done. Yeah. He is not someone I will ever be able to root for again. And again, it's sad because Morgan Moses signed there last year and he had a nice season for them. Look, it stinks. The reality is this guy missed basically 50% of his games as a Jet. We know what he can be when he's healthy. I don't fault the Jets for not wanting to give him that level of deal. Now you let John Simpson walk as well. What's the plan now at guard? Because that needs to be figured out. The Jets can't just say, well, we have pick 16. We're just going to draft the Penn State guard and call it a day. you got to have a better plan than just that. I understand the value might match up and you take that player anyway, but there's some guards that are out there. If I'm the Jets, I'm seriously considering making a run at the player the Packers released yesterday. Elton Jenkins has been a Pro Bowler. He's dealt with some injuries, but that's a guy that I would try and go after. Wyatt Teller is another name who's out there. He could play guard. I think the Jets can't just sit back and go, well, we'll just find someone in the draft and go from there. I think the Jets need to be aggressive and add a legit guard. And then, if the board plays a certain way, sure, you could take a guard at 16 if it makes sense. I prefer them to not do that. You could take someone at 33 or 44. I think there's value there if you wanted to do it. But the pivot can't be, well, we'll just wait for the draft now. They have to get someone who could play on the interior offensive line, this week in free agency.